So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our sixth Tech Connect Thursday powered by WEtech Alliance in partnership with Invest WindsorEssex, FedDev Ontario, Clair College, the University of Windsor, and Workforce WindsorEssex. For those that don't know me, my name is Yvonne Peel and I'm with WEtech Alliance, and I get the pleasure today to host this session, and I couldn't be more excited to welcome our CompTIA friends to the virtual stage to share a bit more about the future of tech jobs and training. But for those of you that aren't familiar with CompTIA, I'm sure our guests will be sharing more, but just a quick overview. So CompTIA stands for the Computing Technology Industry Association. So again, CompTIA for short. It is the leading voice and advocate for a 5 trillion, that's trillion with a T, global information technology ecosystem, and the estimated 75 million industry and technology professionals who design, implement, manage, and safeguard the technology that powers the world's economy. Through education, training, certification, advocacy, philanthropy, and market research, CompTIA is the hub for unlocking the potential of the tech industry and its workforce. So if you are new to Tech Connect, and I know I've seen the registration list, some of you are active engagers every month, but for those that are new, what is Tech Connect? So this is a monthly, so the first Thursday of every month, and it's aimed at those who are curious about working in technology or those who are actively working in technology to not only make connections, but learn about exciting career opportunities and industry sector insights, trends, initiative of what's happening not only here in Windsor-Essex and Chatham-Kent, but also the global stage. Ultimately, our goal is for you to meet the new faces, the fastest growing tech and innovation companies here in the region, as well as organizations leading the way across the entire tech industry like we have today with CompTIA. Ultimately, we hope Tech Connect Thursday helps plug you into the Windsor-Essex and beyond tech scene. So to be considerate of everyone attending today, you know we are leveraging Zoom webinar, so you might not be able to see us, but rest assured you'll have lots of opportunities to engage with our guest speaker today. And again, please engage using the chat feature or the Q&A feature. So if you have a question at any point during today's session, please, again, put it in the Q&A box. You can upvote any questions that you think are interested or that you feel you'd like to have answered as well. And we also have a whole list, you can't see my page here, a list of questions that were gathered through the registration intake. So with that, we are recording this session. So as you know, after this session, the days after, we will submit a wrapped email, which will include the connection to our guest speaker, as well as relevant links and the recording of this session. So in case you missed something, you'll have a chance to look back at that. And so I got to pause here. I've been talking a lot. It is my absolute pleasure today to welcome our guest, Dr. James Stanger, who is the Chief Technology Evangelist. And if you heard him on the radio yesterday with Mike and Lisa at AM 800, what? He woke up very, very early. He's coming on the West Coast, so 5 a.m. But what a cool title. And I'm sure you've been asked or told that many times. So again, very, very cool, cool title. So I realized I saw a preview of your slides, James. So I want to make sure I can read your bio, but would it make sense then for you just to run through who you are? Just, I don't want to duplicate things. So
sure, no problem at all, man. Thank you very much. And greetings from Seattle, Washington. That's almost Canada. Sorry, but I am from up north. That's a picture you're looking at of the Penzance area in the UK or the Cornwall area. Beautiful place. And you'll be seeing more of those pictures. I'm not much of a photographer, but yeah, my name is James Stanger. I'm the Chief Technology Evangelist for CompTIA. What an evangelist does in the tech world is we build consensus. And I think that title came from I think the software world. And the idea was that as software companies or frameworks, for example, in JavaScript or platforms like Java, they have an evangelist out there to spread the word about their particular platform. Well, my job isn't really to spread the word about CompTIA. My job is to spread the word about IT around the world, whether that IT is development programming, whether it be search, databases, data, whether it be security or infrastructure. You call infrastructure like technical support or using the cloud, things like that. That's me. Let's see. That's me sitting, I guess I am. There, if you can see my slides, if you ever seen, is it the Jane Eyre version with Keira Knightley, you know, where she's standing in the wind on the edge of that cliff, you know, it's all so romantic. That's me standing in sitting in a cliff below her. But my job as a technologist, right, is to be an author and an educator. And I talk with people, whether they be students, IT professionals, working IT professionals, and hiring managers, not just about CompTIA, but about what their needs are. So I do a lot of work with people who are learning about IT every day. Sometimes those people are 30-somethings in a job, 30-somethings transitioning to a job, teenagers, old folks, whatever. I've done a lot of work leading organizations. I used to be president of a company that did web development and education, but a lot of security analytics, data analytics, Linux, things like that. So I'm very pleased to be here today. You know, these are some of the questions, and forgive the laundry list element of this particular slide, but I just wanted to let you know I'm aware of some of the questions. But if you have additional questions or even want to repeat some of these questions, what I've got is a bit of a presentation here that I could do. Yvonne, I hope that's okay. And then I want to answer your questions. Either I can answer them now or I can answer them later. But real quick, I'm going to put into the chat window my LinkedIn link, I guess you can call it, my LinkedIn account. You don't have to join my LinkedIn network or whatever, but one thing, if you don't remember anything else, network, not just technical networking involving, you know, like learning how TCP/IP works, but network with each other. If you haven't done that, use whatever favorite networking platform you like. I just happen to use LinkedIn. John, thank you. I can be an honorary Canadian. Thank you very much. And I see a lot of people joining in from various places, from as far away as Florida. And then we have some people, let's see, we're from Windsor, and then YQG, which is the Ontario airport, right, in Canada, right? Is that the one? I'm used to YY, is it YYG? Or is it YY? Anyway, it's an old Rush song. Well, anyway, moving right along. The airport code for Windsor, that's right. So folks, let me go ahead, because I think I've answered a lot of these questions in this presentation. So let's go ahead and see what we can do. And if I haven't, you can answer them right away. This is a picture of one of the typical rock formations that is in a place called Penzance in England. And it can be a little treacherous to walk, right? You know, you have to walk just right along the center line. If you go off on any one side or the other, bad things happen, right? You can fall off, right? This is me walking along one of those types of things. I want you to substitute yourself in that and walking that kind of line, okay? The reason I say that is because your place as a technical worker, I suppose you might be thinking to yourself, is kind of that precarious. It isn't, okay? Your place as a tech worker is a journey, right? And because I love to do, I don't look like it, but I love to do a lot of hiking and walking and things like that, scuba diving, kayaking. But as you are joining into the tech workforce, I think you might think it's a bit, you know, a bit scary to make a transition over into this. I don't think it necessarily has to be, but it is definitely a journey, okay? And for you to understand the future of tech, I think it's important to understand a little bit of the past. Did you know that we're living in the Industrial Revolution? You can even argue we're living in the post-industrial revolution. Some people, and I picked up on this, will say we live in the fourth industrial revolution. Well, what does that mean? I mean, why all these numbers? Well, think about the first industrial revolution is where we basically harnessed steam and water power, and we basically created things like steam engines. That's Paddington Station in the UK. Second industrial revolution, mass production, the assembly line. We used electricity for that. The automobile is kind of the icon for that. Well, the third industrial revolution, the PC, right? Or the computers at any rate, you know, starting in the, say, 1950s, even 1940s. Right, so that's the third industrial revolution. We moved to information, space, and all that sort of thing. The fourth industrial revolution is taking things to the next level and applying artificial intelligence and applying things like the cloud, right? And the whole idea is to get more context about people and to really take advantage of the information generated by the third. Now, you could argue in the world, there are places that are kind of fluctuating between the first and the fourth industrial revolution. I'd imagine we're mostly in the third and the fourth one. There are icons for this, okay? There's an old person named Isambard Kingdom Brunel. That's that person in the hat that you're seeing, right? That kind of an icon for the first industrial revolution. Second industrial revolution, I picked Mr. Toyoda, right? They changed their name to Toyota, right? Who kind of started that. You can pick Ford if you want, or whomever. Well, there's Linus Torvalds, who brought us Linux. You could pick, I suppose, Steve Jobs or whomever. This is Manjula Talreja, whose work in the cloud really made her an icon in the cloud. Notice the increasing diversity going on here in these generations. Where do you lie in this, right? A couple of things to think about, right? And these are fancy terms and might seem boring. I hope not. Democratization, miniaturization, virtualization, and automation. These are things that have been working in our lives for the last 300 years, okay? So take a look at this Amazon SageMaker. This is something that if you have a Visa card, you can get Amazon SageMaker, which is machine learning, right? You can get that going, if not in an afternoon, very quickly. You don't need to be a PhD out of Caltech or MIT to do it. That's what I mean by democratization. It is available to the masses, or at least more available to the masses. It's a trend that's going to be going on in your life, and it has been forever. This is my dad standing in front of cutting edge voice technology, probably ranging from about the 1910s to 1950, right? Now you're looking now, if you look at my screen, cutting edge voice technology, my mobile phone, right? My smartwatch here, right? That's miniaturization, okay? Took all of those things. See those three machines there? The one to the right of the picture, you can see the little horn there. That's what you spoke into, right? To create voice that got recorded onto little ceramic, actually, not really plastic, but ceramic, little round modules, right? And that recorded the voice. Then you could listen to it in the middle device there. Notice how it has the little headphones there. And that big greenish device there, that erased it. And so you can start over, right? See how we've miniaturized things. Virtualization is where we kind of, with the cloud, we get rid of all the hardware, okay? And you focus on all of the software. And we even can get rid of operating systems and just focus on serverless stuff. That's what I mean by virtualization. Automation is with us too. So these things are trends that have been with us for the last 300 years. And as a technologist, you need to take advantage of these. I think there's a personal example. I had a tree fall not too long ago in my little, in my backyard, right? There it is, right? And I used tools to basically cut that thing up, right? And I used it for a firewood, right? I used some 20th century tools, chainsaw, things like that. And I was moving slowly, right? Because I was using the axe and the chainsaw and all that. Well, my dad, who had just had a stroke, said, James, why don't you use some modern technology? And he got out the log splitter. He basically told me to go rent it, and I rented it. And he was able to split 2 cords of wood for me, okay, very quickly, right? He, as usual, teaching me all sorts of things. Automation is with us. And one of the things that is there is there's, for example, Red Hat. We all know about ChatGPT, right? Let's go beyond that even. Here's something called Project Wisdom, which is where Red Hat is using artificial intelligence to automate certain tasks, right? The reason I tell you this story and this kind of long history is to give some context about where you are in the world, okay? And what you can do. So where do you go from here, right, in your journey, right? Well, let's first address a few root causes and a few what I call misconceptions or myth conceptions, because they're kind of myths and mythologies in our life. And I like to look at it in terms of root causes. And I love this picture here. I took this in Japan because I'm lucky enough to talk to people around the world, IT managers and things like that. And I was in Japan, and they were using these roots as steps. Well, what are some of the root causes of our inability to use tech properly, right? And the first one is, I call it tech as a mystery box. In other words, even technologists who use technology every day, and us, who use technology every day as consumers, we tend to treat technology still as some sort of mystery, as something that is kind of hidden from us. Well, it's your job, if you get into technology, to kind of move along and not treat it as a mystery, to really get to know it at a deep level. So if you don't remember anything else about this particular slide, focus on learning what it means not to just consume technology, but to move from being a consumer to being a producer of IT solutions. That way, tech's not a mystery anymore. You actually kind of look underneath the hood of the car, as it were, and see what's going on, and you can identify what the engine is. Don't mistake being a good consumer, therefore, right, for being a good producer or understanding or having a good understanding of technology, because it's tech expertise that folks are looking for. Another thing to think about, and it's a root cause that kind of gets in the way of us using tech properly, is hiring somebody, right? If somebody's hiring James Stanger or somebody's hiring you, they're trying to figure out if you're a good risk. So how can you help somebody be a good risk, okay, as a tech worker? Oftentimes there are companies that don't really properly take a look at the technology that's available to them, and they don't map the technology that's available to their business needs. You'll find that in job interviews, you might find out that some companies don't have their act together, and maybe you can move on and work for one that does. Many people don't recognize how quickly technology changes. I have a friend of mine named Robert Venier. He works for a company called AstraZeneca. People see them as a pharmaceutical company. They're really kind of more of a tech company that solves problems, including things for pharmaceuticals. He told me that with the cloud, things change radically. When I say the cloud, there's AWS, there's Microsoft Azure. Things change every 3 weeks. Now think about that. He said when his pros go up there and to source a solution, they find major changes every 3 weeks. How do you keep your feet with that, right? And the answer to that is you get a good technical foundation. If you have a good foundation in technologies, as things change radically, you can go, okay, I can see what they're doing new with things. So these are some things that I think can be causes of our weakened ability to understand or use tech properly. But actually, if we can turn these into positives, and that's what's cool. Okay, so how do you move forward? Well, let's ask ChatGPT. And I'm not going to do this live because you never know if ChatGPT is going to be available. And I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek here. I think we can go beyond ChatGPT here, but I asked, what are some of the top entry-level jobs today? And notice it mentioned tech support and being a help desk analyst, which are really very similar things, right? And that's one great way to start. It says network administrator, cybersecurity analyst, database administrator. But here's the thing, it doesn't go deep enough into how you get into those jobs, right? So you ask around, and I even, to test ChatGPT, I asked who I was. Got to be careful with ChatGPT or any solution, right, off the internet. Just because it has a slick delivery doesn't mean it's necessarily right all the time, right? It mentions, for example, at the bottom here, if you look at that last little picture, the last little sentence, it says that I have certifications in ITIL Foundation. Well, I don't. I do have Security Plus, A Plus, a bunch of certs, LPI, Linux Plus, all that, Canadians actually, but I'm not ITIL certified. So you got to be careful about what you get off the internet, right? Because you have to keep on learning. You have to make sure that you kind of filter through these things. Here are other job roles that ChatGPT is talking about. You can learn how to use the cloud. I've mentioned it before, or you can do data analytics. There's one of the questions that was asked talking about the importance of data analytics. Here's a question from Hassan. It says he's currently doing a Google IT support professional certificate through Coursera. Good for you, man. Good for you. Yes, we do have a partnership with Google and CompTIA. That's right. Is there a way to get an exam voucher for that? Hassan, it's an interesting idea, Hassan. Normally, we don't give vouchers away a lot, but there's some sort of discount I'm sure that we can possibly work for. So contact me via LinkedIn. I put it into the chat window. We could do that. And John, great point. We don't need ChatGPT. We just go to WEtech, the Alliance job board. Good for you. Good for you. Now, that's interesting you bring that up, John, because as you're looking for a job, I think it's very important to learn a few things. First of all, keep on learning, right? Don't forget that even though you're looking for a job, you have to keep on learning, right? Divide impossible tasks into smaller, impossible bits. Getting a job and interviewing for a job, that's a tough call. That's a tough thing, right? It's something that can be very overwhelming and discouraging. You might take breaks from the process, but the main thing I would do is break things down into smaller manageable bits. And I'll talk more about what that means, but you're on a journey here and you can't do it all at once. And here's some workforce myth conceptions. I call them myth conceptions because they're kind of myths that are operative in our lives that I want you to overcome. And these, by the way, are pictures of people I've met around the globe. Let's see, that one to the left is a group of security analysts learning about zero trust. That was a fun session. I believe I was in Hawaii at the time. No, it was Baltimore. And then the one there is with some friends of mine that I met. They would happen to be in London. They're from Nigeria, and so it was really cool to meet with them. So here's some misconceptions or myth conceptions to think about here. And that picture, by the way, if you're a Led Zeppelin fan, that formed the basis of their album Houses of the Holy, if you know what I'm talking about. All right, misconceptions. I think a lot of people think as they're looking for a job or looking for a career that, okay, I'm going to go work for the tech sector. And that's a very specific phrase. That means like Silicon Valley or maybe Austin, Texas or Bangalore, India, tech cities or tech sectors. Most of the jobs, the vast majority of the jobs are not in the tech sector. You don't have to go to work for Microsoft or Google or Dell or whatever. You could work for a bank down the street, right? You could work for an insurance company. In fact, manufacturing, fintech or finance companies, right? So manufacturing, finance companies, and healthcare, kind of some of the top 3 hiring sectors in Canada. Okay, so all jobs are not in the tech sector. Yeah, you'll be using tech, and you might be using stuff from the tech sector. When I say stuff, software or solutions, but you get a job in any place that you want. It could be in the retail sector. A good friend of mine worked in the retail sector for Target for years as a security professional. Okay. A lot of people think it'll take years to get hired. That's not really necessarily the case. If you take a lot of the right actions, you can get it faster than that. A lot of people think, hey, you'll get hired right away. Okay, well, I think that's a myth too, right? It's somewhere between years and right away. Okay, it won't take you that long, but it won't be something that happens easily necessarily. I think a lot of people think, hey, there's no hiring for entry-level jobs. There is. A lot of people also think IT isn't particularly inclusive. Maybe traditionally, but you're finding IT is one of the more inclusive areas because we need technologists and we need creative thinkers. A lot of people think, well, I'm probably too old. I didn't start doing tech until the age of 10. Just personally, I didn't get over into doing a tech-oriented job until my late 20s, early 30s, which is about average. I think the average age of people that we see entering into the tech sector can be in the 30s, for example, in many of the sectors, and many of the people who get jobs. Okay, you don't have to be that old, right? But it's never too late to start. Okay, a lot of people think IT workers are born and not taught. No, you have to learn little by little. I think another mythology that's out there is, well, we're seeing massive layoffs in the IT sector. Run away. Some sort of bubble has burst. I see news on this every other day, and that's usually generated from what I call noisy companies with strange names in the tech sector. Okay, trust me, if there are people who get laid off and who are tech workers, they get a job straight away in another sector if they're good IT workers. The overall unemployment rate in Canada is about 5%. The overall unemployment rate in the US right now is about 3.7, about 4%. These are low rates. In the IT sector, not tech sector, but in IT, the percentage of unemployment is actually lower than 3%, 3.7% and 5%. It just is. So we're not seeing massive layoffs where there are IT workers sitting around going, oh, I don't have a job, right? They're bouncing back very quickly. So don't believe that noise. Your previous experience isn't relevant, right? A lot of people, if I'm shifting from one thing to the next, then it's not relevant. Well, actually it is. IT folks, in fact, are creative. And people are like, well, will I get outsourced? Will I get automated? Well, if you're not learning and pushing your knowledge, I suppose you can get outsourced or automated. Yeah, I think that's very possible. Is that happening to all IT workers? Hardly. In fact, if you can think about ChatGPT or real implementations or more serious implementations of artificial intelligence. I know many IT workers have been working with artificial intelligence for years now. I also know some people who stopped learning, and it didn't take artificial intelligence to replace them. They got replaced by a web script, okay? So a lot of people are like, hey, can I enter the tech world without a tech background? That's a great question. That's a great question. I think, and John is saying the Windsor-Essex is home to more than 1,000 manufacturers. See, manufacturing is a real place that needs IT right now, trust me. But here's three people, Elizabeth, Eric, and Andres. There's Elizabeth right there. She was an elementary school teacher less than a year and a half ago, right? I mean, an active elementary school teacher. I met her in Atlanta, Georgia. She's now a security compliance manager. She's very good at taking a crowd of rowdy people and pointing them towards and guiding them towards a task, right? Her previous life experience as an elementary teacher was all about doing that with little people, right? With small folks, right? With kids, right? Well, she does that now on the IT side, getting people compliant to security standards and protocols. Eric was in the food service. See if I can find him here. Eric. Oh, I don't have a picture of him, strangely. Eric was in the food service industry, now does work as a security worker. Andres was an engineer. He started in help desk, okay? So think of the different backgrounds here. Elementary school, right? Food service engineer, not even a college degree. Andres was an engineer, but he didn't use his college degree at all to get into help desk. So how can you get started on a career? Well, ChatGPT says identify your interest and gain knowledge and skills and build a portfolio. All good surface recommendations. I would argue the first thing, get hands-on experience. And you might think to yourself, well, how would I possibly get hands-on experience? Where do I start? Well, the CompTIA ITF Plus, CompTIA A Plus, these are ways that you can start. We at CompTIA are an education company. Our standards aren't come up with just by me or by a few people who are actually smart. We literally crowdsource the wisdom of thousands of working IT professionals. But get hands-on experience. I can think of a nephew of mine who just got a job about 6 months ago for Oracle, working for a data center there that they have. He proved his hands-on experience not only by getting certified, but also by showing during an interview, they were asking him questions about his technical knowledge. And he said, I could tell that people in the job interview weren't really listening. The body language was kind of like this, and they were pleasant, but they said, well, how did you get started in tech? And then he told a story. And that's one of my tips to you. Tell stories about your technology implementations. And his was, as a kid, he got into his gaming console. He likes gaming. I don't, but he does. And he got into that and he overclocked. That means sped up the CPU, right? He actually opened it up and started messing around with stuff. And he replaced the hard disk and got a bigger hard disk. And he said in the room, immediately it went from, the kind of standoffish, questions or whatever to where people were leaning forward and going, so tell me what you did again. See, you think to yourself, well, how is that hands-on experience? Well, it is. If you are the person who people naturally come to and ask questions about tech, like something's broken. That's how I got started in the tech world. I got an English PhD in 1997. Years before that, I turned into the go-to person for the department, for the professors, for school students. If they had a problem, they came to me and I tried to help solve their problem, right? But even if you're not that person, you can get that kind of previous experience. And the first job that I ever got doing technical support for an organization was when I told people stories about how I helped, fix software problems or login problems or even a physical problem, like a hard disk or something. These are things that you can do, but create a learning network as well. It's very important. And create a professional network. That can be two different things. Professional network meaning, like LinkedIn or whatever, or a network of professionals who can be as mentors to you. But also create a learning network. As you go into a class, connect with the people in the class so that if you miss an hour or miss a day or something, you can, share ideas with each other. Create multiple resumes. These are all things that to me go deeper than the typical ChatGPT kind of approach here. When it comes to trends or what IT means these days, let's take a look at some of those. Now, we do a lot of research at CompTIA. Not only are we a learning company, but we do just petabytes of research where we ask working IT professionals, hiring managers, what's important. And about half said here are the technologies that are important moving forward. Okay. So it talks about the respondents said things like the Internet of Things and software as a service. That means the cloud, robotics and artificial intelligence, all these things, big data analytics. There was a question that people asked, for example, what about data analytics? Fantastic career to get into. We could help you with that as well. But we live in a cloud first hybrid world. And by cloud first, I mean, we might choose the cloud first. We might choose AWS or Azure or Google Cloud first. But most people are still using data centers, and data center is different than the cloud. The cloud is something that you go up to Microsoft for that solution. When it comes to a data center, that could be a data center just down the road from you, or it could be a data center somewhere in the States or somewhere around the world. But there's also installed stuff, they call it on-premise. Those three elements are things that you're going to be working with for the rest of your life, right? The rest of your career, which is actually kind of fun. So you're going to continue using these three ways in which computers are used. So you have to think to yourself, well, how do you secure it? And there are kind of four different areas that we kind of broke IT down into. There's infrastructure, like the cloud. There's development, where you create code. If you like to create code, go for it. Now, if you go into infrastructure jobs, you don't necessarily have to be a programmer. You don't have to be a math genius. You don't have to be a programmer to get into IT. I'm a lousy programmer. I'm pretty good at IT. I'm not a bad programmer, but I'm more of an infrastructure and security person, right? Another pillar is security. Another pillar is data. So you could ask yourself, how do I drill down into IT? Well, start breaking it up into bits, right? Here's 4 bits. Do I like to create code, or is that intriguing to me? Am I more of a data analyst, where I like to crunch numbers, as it were, or crunch data, raw data, and turn it into things? I already covered this slide here, where it says Canada's overall unemployment is 3.7%. But take a look at this element here. What we're seeing is continued interest in computer network technicians and user support technicians. Those are the categories that are used for infrastructure. So that includes the cloud, for example. But you'll notice web designers, web developers, that has gone down, strangely, demand has, in software engineers. But notice, we need database and database administrators. We need systems analysts to find out how to kind of investigate how IT is mapped to business. These are statistics here showing that we're seeing an overall growth in these areas, okay? Here's another one that is, again, showing a continued growth that we saw massive growth in 2022. It's leveled off a bit. That doesn't mean it's gone down. It just means it's gone back to our pre kind of pandemic hiring statistics. But the thing that I want to show you from this is that it would take a year or more of massive layoffs for us to even get out of record hiring territory when it comes to IT jobs. So there's serious opportunity out there for you to learn. Every sector is looking for good IT workers. Software development, systems analysts, IT support, all of them. A friend of mine, Seth Robinson, who works for CompTIA, says the demand for tech workers remains. It still outpaces the supply, even though we are pumping more supply into the system. When it comes to skills, I argue that we're really looking for people who have something called skillability. I use that term. It's not a real term. I just made it up. But they're looking for people who can prove they can learn new things. Tech is always moving quickly. It was one of the questions was asked, is if tech is moving so quickly, how do businesses cope? They cope by hiring and upskilling people they feel can learn new things all of the time. That's why you use the term digital fluency and being current. And that doesn't just mean being a good consumer of IT. It means that you understand what's going on underneath the hood. So how can you change constantly your relationship with technology? And the answer is getting a good foundation in knowledge. I was talking with a friend of mine, Mike Garrity. He's the CISO for the state of New Jersey. And he basically says he spends about 50% of an employee's time just training them in the first year of employment, just training them. And he says you can't protect a network if you don't know how a network works. Now, it's fundamentals that are important. Another friend of mine at Microsoft says fundamentals will help you keep your feet when the technical ground shifts underneath you. By technical knowledge, I'm talking about things like understanding how DNS works, how naming works, how TCP works, and things like that. In the absence of time, These are other people that are pointing out the importance of having fundamental knowledge, right? And by fundamental knowledge, something you can learn, for example, with A+, but just understanding how the foundations of the internet works. And here are some questions that I got from a job seeker. These are questions that the job seeker didn't come up with. These are questions the job seeker was asked during an interview. How does a hard disk work? If somebody goes and visits a company, company.com or CompTIA.org or whatever, what happens? So they're asking about DNS, about IP address. There's a virtual machine, a computer that won't boot. How do you problem solve that? These are kind of the questions that you'll be asked during the interview. And these are some of the people who will ask those questions. Some people that I met in India. There's some students in Japan. And there is, let's see, at the bottom picture, those are folks, many of those folks are there in the finance sector, in the fintech sector, who will ask you these kinds of questions. I was recently talking to some folks up in Canada. They're called Nerds on Site. That's the name of the company. And they're a gang of MSP workers, and they want to hire you. They'll ask you these exact same questions. So there's a picture of some people who would be interested in hiring you. And because they want you to know how things work. For example, Zoom, right? I won't go into detail on these things, but you'll learn about things like the TCP handshake. It's a three-way little handshake, kind of like when you go and shake someone's hand and say hello, somebody says hello back. That's kind of how it all works. You need to understand how protocols such as this work. This here, if you've ever bought something on Amazon, you usually will buy something over an encrypted connection, right? Well, that's the description. That's how those 9 different steps, how it works. That all seems really daunting to you right now, learning about application programming interfaces and all that. Don't worry about that. Don't worry that data analytics skills involve the ability to capture data and to normalize it and remove duplications and how to create searches and then to visualize things. Don't worry about it being overwhelmed, okay? What I want you to think about is, what are some areas that can help you figure things out? For example, do you like to visualize things? This here is a picture that I took of a grizzly bear in Teton National Park. Not only are you somebody, if you're into security, maybe you could be somebody who can identify a threat, right? A threat to you, right? To you and your organization. Or if you like data, can you take a look at a picture? For example, you're looking at, believe it or not, I think it's 5, R-A-S-C-H, 4 volcanoes. There's Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, Mount Hood way in the distance, and to the right, Mount St. Helens. That is what Pacific Northwesterners will call RASH. R, Rainier, Adams, right? St. Helens and Hood. Get it? RASH. That's because it rains so much in the Pacific Northwest here. We usually don't get to see that pattern. But if you like to look at patterns and things like that, maybe data analytics is a job for you. So there are a lot of pathways open to you, okay? And those pathways kind of help get past the fact that things move so quickly, or that there's tech changes. That's what mutability means, right? Or that tech is everywhere. How do you stay on track? Well, if you get certified with CompTIA, you have the right currency, I would argue. So there's one thing to think about. But I want to go back and answer people's questions about what it means to get into the tech world here. Let's see if I can do that. So here's a question from Noreen. My husband did a bachelor in civil engineering and wants to shift the career into tech. Good for him. So he's completing the Google IT certification. Yeah, that's good. After getting the certification, should he start to find jobs, or should he get to CompTIA certification first? Any hiring manager looks for evidence of achievement. That evidence of achievement can be a reference from somebody saying, hey, yes, Noreen's husband knows how to do X, Y, and Z. I would argue you can get out there and start looking for a job straight away, but get certified at the same time, because it's one way that you can prove things. Great question. Questions about any technology. Here we go. Where can someone get information on programs, support, and guidance in changing a career path? It's a great question. You can go to various partners that CompTIA has to teach you more. So learning centers, universities, community colleges, further education colleges, and things like that are places where you can go. It's a great question. Great question. When I changed my career, I went and looked at organizations, for example, like New Horizons. I also went to organizations like Western Governors and things like that, that taught me where I could go next. So I'd be happy to talk to you about that. You know, I think it's really important when you're looking for a career to get real research and to kind of separate the signal from the noise. You know, the signal noise ratio. If the noise gets too high, you can't hear the signal, can't hear anybody talk, right? So I think one of the things you could look for is the CompTIA jobs report. It's updated monthly. If you want to get a sense of what's going on about, let's say, the current recession impact on the tech industry, here's one place where you can go to learn about that. There's one of the questions was saying, hey, what do you think about the current recession impact on the tech industry? Here's the thing. I have seen the tech industry, the economic downturns in various parts of the world impact IT workers, but even in spite of any sort of recession, I'm seeing tech workers keep their jobs. And the primary reason for that is that organizations that thought for years and kind of got away for years without really using technology very deeply are realizing the only way they can stay alive is to use technology every day and to use it more deeply. And so they realize if they need to use tech, they actually need workers to implement that. And yes, I know artificial intelligence is around, and artificial intelligence, like any automation, can remove jobs or take away jobs. We're finding it actually creates more opportunity and more jobs. As companies get deeper into tech, they realize they need workers that can get deeper into tech and solve problems. Just a quick analogy. There was a person, Horatio was his first name, and Horatio went across the country in 1903, I think it was. He drove his car in 1903 from San Francisco to New York. And all along, he had to go into blacksmiths, because the blacksmiths existed then, because most people used horses. And he realized that he looked at him and said, wow, those blacksmiths, my car is going to put them out of a job. So, you know, a car is much more automated, right? It didn't really put blacksmiths out of a job. The blacksmiths just became mechanics. You're going to find those shifts to be very quick in the tech sector, or in the technology world, I should say technology world. Doesn't mean it puts you out of a job. It just means you have to keep learning stuff, have to keep learning new things. So there's the CompTIA Tech Jobs Report is one way to keep abreast of what's going on. Whoa. Also, we do our industry outlooks. The 2023 report is out right now. That comes out new every year, so you can check that out. Also in May, coming up in May, not too far away, right? It's March right now. In May, we're seeing a ton of, we're going to see a new report. It's about Canada. The 2022 report is already out, and I'll show you that URL here in a second. I went too quickly by it. But in the interest of time, I'll give you my networking here so you can connect more. Here's a bunch of great questions. Do you think the remote work trend will continue? That's a great question. I think it's going to be a hybrid world that we live in, okay? In the same way I was talking about how we might choose the cloud first, but then we're also going to use data centers and we're still going to install stuff. I still think we're going to see a lot of workers being expected to come to work, but it's going to be in a hybrid situation. Instead of being remote 5 days a week for a normal working week, and instead of being remote for those 5 days or in person for those 5 days, I think people will be asked to come into work for a day or two, or 3 days out of the 5 or something like that. It'll be a hybrid situation. It depends on the company and the sector. We've certainly seen a lot of noise and a lot of news about, for example, was it Disney said, oh, all you workers have to come back into work. You know, to be creative, you have to meet face to face. I think there's some generational thinking going on there. I think there's also a lot of companies are very worried about what their employees are doing. And that kind of tells me a little bit more about a company's inability to manage people. If you think the only way you can manage somebody is to see them face to face, then I think you have a management problem. I think some companies use the idea of, okay, we're not working remotely anymore. If COVID's over, it's over. You have to come back to work. I think they might be using that in more cynical ways than in productive ways. But some companies, I think, have a good point in wanting to make sure that they have an engaged workforce. I would argue there are more creative ways to engage a workforce than making them come into work. I think sometimes making people come into work can be interpreted as a way to get rid of certain workers or whatever. rather than trying to keep them. It can be a bit of a problem, but so I think it's going to be a hybrid. My short answer is hybrid work. Tangible, 3 next steps that you can take right now to progress your career. What a great question. What are the 3 tangible steps, okay, that you can take to progress your career? Okay, first, hands-on practical learning. If you learn about a concept, if you learn about something, get hands-on about it. One of the next steps I would say is pick a body of knowledge. So hands-on, always think in terms of hands-on. By that, in other words, if you learn something, get your fingers, get the mouse going and start learning about that in a practical way. I would pick a particular area and investigate it and learn it. And that means getting a body of knowledge or learning objectives that are created by a group of professionals. So the second thing is, besides hands-on, focus on a specific area and then just get deeper and deeper into it. And the third thing is networking. And by networking, I mean, get yourself a mentor, a learning mentor, get yourself a jobs mentor, find people who are working in the sector. I'd be happy to start you out on that. You can join me on LinkedIn, for example, but get a mentor and somebody who you trust can help you out. It could be a parent. It could be a parent's friend. It could be a friend's friend who knows more about tech than you do. Just get started there. So hands-on, get a network, a learning network and that, but then pick an area that intrigues you and interests you. You do those 3 things and you can go ahead and then start focusing on things like resumes and all that. But that second piece about learning, I would really argue you really need to focus on something that gives you a clear idea and a clear picture. For example, a lot of people start with help desk. Okay, so focus on, well, what certifications, what training and things help me to learn about help desk. If you're somebody who's like, hey, I want to learn more about tech, but it seems kind of intimidating, then get started on something like ITF Plus with CompTIA. There are a lot of different ways that you can enter into this, but get yourself a good mentor and help you out. Great questions. International students, we have so many international students. That's the fun thing about careers these days. In companies that do allow remote work, it's fascinating to see the international element coming in and the increased diversity there. So about international students, the first thing is to realize that you are in a global economy now and that you can find jobs that are not just in your area or just in the tech sector, but are in any particular area, for example, manufacturing. I've already mentioned that. But for international students, the next thing I would do is focus on what your area of interest is and what your particular region's perceived strength is. If you're in an area in India that is known as providing, really good technical support, that might be an area that can help you. International students, though, I think in a global environment, I'm not sure you have to see yourself as international or not, right? There are definitely certain issues, for example, with bandwidth. I was in South Africa and bandwidth is an issue and that kind of gets in the way of online learning and things like that. But there are ways to work around that. You can download things from a public site, from a public Wi-Fi, et cetera, and then you can work on those things locally. So problem solve some of those issues. You'll find yourself being able to offer much more than the average person because you've become a problem solver. Other questions? Favorite podcasts and books. If you're interested in getting into security, it's a really old book, but it's a good one. It's called The Cuckoo's Egg. What a title, huh? It's called The Cuckoo's Egg. Podcasts, there's so many good podcasts out there. PC Magazine does a few. One of the podcasts at CompTIA, Seth Robinson puts together. It's called Volley, Volley. Great podcast that can help you keep focused on current trends and things like that. So thanks for asking that question. We already asked that. Let's see what other questions. Oh my, so many. Let's see. Will he have a hard time as he does not have any experience? How can he demonstrate to the employer that he can do the job? That's a great question. Okay, the first thing is certifications can be used as proof of experience. They can be. A lot of people who are hiring managers do see certification as proof. Not all of them do. Okay. But first of all, think of the two different types of experience you can get. You can get direct experience and indirect experience. Okay, direct experience means the ultimate direct experience is James got paid to do tech support work for X company, right? Other forms of direct experience are volunteer work. So I would argue there's lots of volunteer work out there for you. And that volunteer work can be in the neighborhood, it can be for family, it can be for a church group or a Grange or some sort of nonprofit organization. You could do that kind of work to get that direct experience. Indirect experience, some people would argue that non-paid work is indirect experience, but I would argue indirect experiences also brings in the idea of soft skills. Or people call it durable skills, the ability to show up on time, the ability to work and play well with others, the ability to solve conflicts and things like that. I would argue that the direct experience and indirect experience, get creative about that. So it's not just certification, it's doing kind of volunteer work can help you learn more about things. So you can get that. I'm probably over time. But thank you very much, folks, for your time today. Let me see if I can get to additional questions. But I did want to get to this slide. If you trust QR codes, you can hold your phone up to that code and you can download these slides and study them later, right? So any of the URLs that I mentioned, any of the resources I mentioned, you can download these slides. They're all yours. Or you could take a screenshot of this and you could, boy, it'd take a while, but you could type in that URL. I probably should have used tiny URL, but I'm sorry I didn't.
QR code success, James. It worked
yeah,
on my phone.
It'll work. It worked. I don't believe it. I can use technology, Yvonne. Who knew? So I'm probably taking way too long. Yeah, David has a great point. Skills, and forgive me if I'm looking away from my screen. I'm just looking at the webinar chat. It does require more than just tech. Yeah, usability. That's interesting you bring up usability. One of the big topics these days is the idea of customer experience. They'll use the term CX, customer experience, or user experience, or even partner experience. They'll even do employee experience. Like, how do you keep employees engaged, by learning and all that. I do a lot of work with companies. So yeah, human interactions and behaviors. David, you have the beginning of either a web developer, web designer, like front end developer, or an analyst. I mean, the things that you've said either leads me to believe you could be a data analyst or a front-end developer or something. You could even be somebody who creates cloud-based solutions, uses the cloud to create business solutions. So I expect great things of you, David. And thank you. So thank you, everybody. I think that answers most of the questions that folks had. So I sure appreciate your time. I hope it was useful to all of you. So Yvonne, thank you again.
No, thank you, James. I feel like this was not only a great learning, but a geography lesson. We learned some new words, scalability, and just we did put a number of the links in the chat, but rest assured, our amazing team is going to put all this stuff, including the Cuckoo's Egg book and the podcast. I know, James, one of my favorite tech podcasts is Pivot with Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher.
Yes.
Love both of them. Again, just a kind of understanding on big tech and some of the things that are happening. Really, I think consumable. So if anyone's looking for another podcast, you also have Volley from CompTIA. So with that, James and the entire team from CompTIA, because it took a number of people to get this session together. Thank you so much. And again, don't use CompTIA to your advantage. They have tons and tons. I think we learned like 1%, not even, of just how big and how robust the programming and supports and research are from CompTIA. So again, thank you to the entire team. We will again send that email out with all of the links, the slides, and the recording to you in the next coming days. But with that, we always like to end these sessions with a few things, including the next Tech Connect session. So a number of you are likely calling in or joining us from the Windsor-Essex region. And what we like to do with these sessions too is showcase some of the companies that are currently hired. So the next session is going to be with ever.ag. This is an agriculture, ag tech company that is newly expanded to Windsor. So if you're interested in learning about their company, the tech careers, and a little bit about the ag tech space, Please join us April 6th again from 12 to 1 virtually to meet the ever.ag team. Lastly, it's important for us to get feedback on these sessions. So our production team's just going to pull up a quick poll for you to give us your ratings today. Again, I thought this was a phenomenal session, so hopefully it doesn't cue you to give us a 10. And lastly, what's coming up in the Windsor-Essex tech scene? So every year in March, it's Tech Week. So March 20th to 24th, we have daily activities for the entire ecosystem, whether you're a woman in tech, someone looking at the auto tech industry, the green tech industry, just trying to learn what are the tech companies out there. And if you're a tech founder, if you're looking to build a tech company, we have programming for you. And the best part, it is all free. Some of it is in person, some is in virtual, just so that we can, expand our reach and make our programming more accessible. If you are looking for a tech job, you did see that we do have an active tech jobs board here at WEtech Alliance. We also encourage you to check out our friends at Workforce WindsorEssex, and not only have a number of career path resources for you, they also have a regional job board, which is just absolutely fantastic. It's aggregating from a number of the largest employment sites. Also, if you just want to check out some really cool tech, and have something fun to do with family and friends, the Windsor-Essex Great Lakes First Robotic Tournament is returning to Windsor March 31st, April 1st. This is such a fun initiative. Again, if you do have kids at home, or if you're an adult, I'm absolutely obsessed with First Robotics. Join us. It is a free event. And again, more details will be shared in the follow-up email as well as in the chat. And with that, it is my pleasure again to host you today, and thank you everyone who chimed in for Tech Connect Thursdays. We look forward to seeing you next month. And again, another big thank you to our guest speaker today, Dr. James Stanger from CompTIA. What a fantastic and engaging speaker you are, James. We are so lucky to have you, and we hope to see you maybe in Seattle this August.
I hope so, man. I hope so. It'd be great to connect.
It would. Okay, well, enjoy your travels. And again, I look forward to personally following you. And I hope, again, to the students, please follow up. Networking is important, and we don't just mean that in the technical way, right? Network with your fingers and your toes. So again, have a great day, and we'll all see you soon.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, James. Take care.
Bye.